Hey everyone, this is Jennifer Beamer, owner operator of Exploit Dyed Art by Science, and this is Fiber Talk episode number 20, and today we are going to be talking about Blue Texel. One of the things that I love about living in Britain is access to all of these British breeds. And so Texel it's a breed that I was sort of familiar with before doing this video long time ago. In fact, right around the time I launched Expertly Dyed, there was a lady in the States who had a shop that I think sourced wools from all over the world, because I know that she got the Texel combed top from the UK. And I was exposed to it, but I wasn't quite sure what to do about it, and I was still stuck in the whole everything must be merino mindset, which I think I've definitely sort of transitioned out of as I've done more of this breed study. But I was not impressed with Texel, and if you are watching this video, you might have had a similar experience, or you just don't know what the heck it is. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Fleece and Fiber source book says about it. So I've got my trusty book here, and they sort of emphasize that Texel as a breed is primarily made for, or they're primarily raised for their ability to produce meat and not wool, but they do produce what they've described in the book as bulk amounts, which I find really funny. So these sheep are named after a coast in the Netherlands called Texel, and they are crossed with Lincoln and Leicester long wools in the mid-1800s. And curiously, they have the white or normal Texel, and then they have the Blue Texel, which has been recognized sort of in its own little category. So essentially what I have is a Blue Texel, and they can be quite variable in terms of their fleeces. So because of the focus being on the meat element, the wool that they produce is kind of an afterthought. So if an animal happens to produce a nice fleece, then that's sort of a one-off to celebrate. But there's not necessarily a lot of consistency throughout the fleece type, or sort of like throughout an entire flock. It can be quite variable. So they've said here it could be anywhere between 28 and 33 microns, so that's probably like the average range, but it can be as fine as 26 microns, which actually gets it closer into sort of like that upper end for blue-faced Leicester, and up to 36 microns, which definitely is a lot more coarse. But if you're looking for a medium coarse wool or a medium soft wool, I don't like using the word coarse because it doesn't actually feel coarse, but it's kind of what I would call a workhorse yarn. So it's something that you can sort of subject to a lot of abrasion. So my goal with this yarn is to produce a blanket, but also to highlight the wonderful colors that I got from my particular Blue Texel. And so the other bit that I wanted to note from the Fleece and Fiber source book was that Texel, despite a lot of these animals just kind of fending for themselves and then being kind of brought in to be managed occasionally, they're going to be out rolling around in the ground, and stuff is going to stick to them, including like vegetable matter. But in my experience working with the raw fleece, they got clean instantly. So they don't have a lot of lanolin, which is sort of something to note if you are working with a raw fleece, to try and not over scour it, otherwise it'll feel really dry and brittle. But if you do, you can always add in some olive oil or any kind of like oil similar that will kind of keep this amount of static down whenever you're processing it or spinning it. So I only had to do one wash and a lot of the vegetable matter came out and they got really, really clean. And even after I carded it and spun it, it's almost completely bereft of any vegetable matter. And that's a really convenient quality because they're not as intensively managed like some flocks can be. So that sort of brings their price range down a little bit. And so if you are working with the fleece, then in terms of processing it, it's actually not as difficult to manage the amount of vegetable matter that could be present, since it does fall out really easily. So these are what the white texels look like from the Fleece and Fiber source book right here. So they look really wide-chested with very broad faces, but I wanted to show you what mine looked like. So the shepherdess sent me a picture of Shadow. So this is the little guy who grew my fleece. Isn't he adorable? So they've kind of got like this slightly almost lilac gray look to them. I don't know if that's the photo, could be just the photo. But in the fleece, I picked out the bits that were sort of tonalities. So I have a light gray, a medium gray, and a dark gray. So this is the dark gray that I got from it. And it's really, really pretty. I like kind of like that heathered look. And I did a traditional 3-ply, and it was effortless to spin this up. It was so nice. So that's basically the dark gray spun traditional 3-ply. And it is a little bit fuzzy, but I think that loftiness is really good if you want insulating fabrics. So I might not want to wear this on my head, for example, but I think it's going to be really nice for a blanket or any kind of outerwear where you might want to have something that's a little bit bulky but not super heavy, so there's still a lot of loft in this yarn, but it's not going to abrade really quickly, so I don't anticipate this pilling much, if at all, and I hope it doesn't become threadbare, but we'll see. And then this one is sort of that mid-gray tone, which I didn't get quite as much of this as I would have liked. I'll tell you the amounts here in a second, but it's just like, you know, pretty standard mid-gray, but I think especially when they're all set up as a gradient, so that's the darker gray. If I can get this to focus. So that is the darker gray, and that's the mid-gray. So tonality, there's not like a huge difference in value. And then this one is the lightest gray, and I think that's probably the biggest shift. But because I got a lot of this, I think most of the fleece was this color. So when I've got them all next to each other, I can do this. I think they work really well as a gradient. So we've got the light, mid, and dark gray. And again, I did them all with the traditional 3-ply method. I think that the lighter parts of the fleece are ever so slightly softer, which makes sense because generally speaking, colored fleeces tend to be slightly more coarse than their whiter counterpart. I don't know how true across all breeds that is, but it seems to be, in my experience, the case. So yeah, Shadow. It was a DK2 worsted weight. It was a 1.2 kilos. Is that what I said? I think it was 1.2 kilos for the whole fleece. Washed it, processed it, spun it. I had 648 grams of my finished spin, which was 1,194 yards. And the light gray, I had the most. It was 458 yards. The medium gray was 364, and the dark gray was 372. So that all adds up to 1194, which I hope it does. And yeah, it was so easy to spin it. It felt very effortless to keep a consistent grist so that it would all work together really well in a project, which I probably next time need to be slightly more diligent about, because by the time I got to the dark gray, which was the last one that I spun, it wasn't quite as thin as I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be more DK weight, and it was ever so slightly more worsted, which is fine because I'm going to make a blanket with it. In the other Fiber Talk episodes, I talked about using some of these wools that I wasn't quite as familiar with in projects. So with things like merino and whatever, I had a lot more experience, so I felt like I could more confidently say what it's useful for. But for some of these, this is the only fleece I've ever worked with, and so I probably should spend some time working on a project. And so the project for this one is to make yet another blanket. And I do have the massive video of the blanket that I finished last year to edit, and I've been putting it off for a very long time because the lighting is really bad and I needed to stop and learn some video editing skills. I haven't been able to get back to it, but hopefully I'll be able to at least do some progress content with this through video updates and also with Instagram, Patreon, that sort of thing. So hopefully I'll be able to manage the content slightly better. But what I've come up with is a paneled weave where I've got the the dark gray, the medium gray, and then the light gray. And I've done about a 4-yard warp, and I've been keeping track of how long it is so that I can advance the warp for a break so that I can do the 2 panels. And then when I'm done, I'm going to see whether I wanted to go from dark, mid, light to mid, dark again, or if I want to switch it the other way around so they're sort of like in the center panel, it's lighter or darker. So I'm going to have to play around with that to see which one might look better. I could also just do a light, medium, dark, light, medium, dark, so that you can really see the 2 panels. But again, I'm gonna have a little play and see how that works. But so far, it's been really easy to weave. I probably need to get a new rigid heddle for my Kromsky loom because it's almost too thick for the openings in the heddle. So I've been having to use one of my shuttle sticks here as a weft beater, which always slows down the process, but it's not like I'm doing this because it's quick anyway. But on the success of the other blanket that I made, I thought, what better way to showcase how beautiful this fiber is than in a large project. So I can't think of too many larger projects than a blanket, and even though I didn't have nearly as many yards for this blanket as I did my other one, it's still going to be kind of lap-sized. So I'm hoping that it will be great long ways to cover me from sort of my shoulders down to my feet. But if it's not super cold, so like it's April now and it's warming up, but occasionally it feels a bit chilly if the windows have been left open for too long. So I'm hoping that if I have a little lap blanket where I can have some of it on me, but not doubled up like I have to with my other blankets, then I'll sort of be able to manage my warmth level a little better. Also, these colors look really good with my couch as opposed to the orange autumn red blanket that I made previously, which I still love, but it doesn't really go. It doesn't go with my couch. So I'm hoping that this project will be a little bit nicer as a throw for that reason as well. You know, it's all about looks. Those are my thoughts so far about having worked with Blue Texel specifically. From the fleece, it was very easy to wash, it was very easy to card, it was so easy to spin. It's been a pleasure to weave so far. I think it will still be soft enough where if I'm wearing like a skirt or shorts or something and I want to wear a blanket, it won't feel scratchy up against my skin. It still feels quite soft, but it is a little bit fuzzy. And so for those people who might have some issues with wool right against their skin, or if they're really like sensitive to the surface of like a finished fabric, then it might be worth trying to blend it or seek out one of those finer versions of the fleeces, or maybe even something white and then dyeing it. That's always a possibility. Like you'll just have to kind of play around to see, you know, if that's going to be right for you. But I think if you don't have those particular issues, it's really wonderful wool to work with. I'm very happy that I bought it. It was someone's de-stash, so I think it was the 22 clip that I bought last year. And yeah, they were just trying to get rid of fleeces for the new ones to come in. So I got a really good deal on it. I think it was like 15 pounds, which is slightly more expensive than some of the other fleeces I bought here, but I think it was kind of worth it because it was not really a specialty breed, but something that I don't really find that often, so I was really happy to snap it up. But anyway, so those are my thoughts so far. I will keep posting some progress about this project, and hopefully I will be able to do a final review once I've actually used it some more in its finished form to give more insights. But otherwise, that is it for this video. If you want to follow along with some of the other posts that I've done, I've got one on Patreon, so feel free to go into the description box and check that out if that is something you are interested in doing, supporting me each month. There's also my socials, so things like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And also my website. So if there's anything that you would like in your own collection, whether it's bats, yarn, etc. I've got some stitch markers. That's also available in the shop, and those proceeds support me directly. But you can also purchase all these items on Etsy, so giving you guys a little bit of flexibility in how you would like to support me. But at the very least, please subscribe if you haven't already and give me a thumbs up, and any other insights or questions you might have, just post those in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!